Good evening, Chester County. My name is Dr. Jessica Weingarten, and I'm chair of Indivisible Chester County. And along with our leadership team of Phil Daig, Shannon Brown, Laura Davis, Rich Cole, and Luke Bauerlein, we welcome you to our meet and greet event. First, a few thank yous to Melissa Shusterman and her staff for graciously giving us this space. And then at the last minute, moving it inside, because when we planned this, we had no idea we would be living in a jungle by August of 2018. I want to thank our videographer, Rob Cates, who provided the PA system and is live streaming, and to Lisa Longo, who was incredibly helpful with all the logistics that went into this. For those of you unfamiliar with Indivisible Chester County, or ICC, we're a nonpartisan civic organization with a mission statement wherein we make our voices known to our elected officials. We support progressive candidates, and from time to time, we exercise our First Amendment rights, which is what we're all doing this evening. Tonight, you'll be hearing from the vast majority of the candidates endorsed by ICC. All endorsed candidates were invited, although sadly, some were unable to attend. When ICC was formed last year, we only had 3 rules. We still only have 3 rules. And one of those rules was that if we were ever going to endorse candidates, it would not come from leadership. It would come from the ground up. A member of ICC was sent a ballot and was given the opportunity to participate in the selection of our endorsed candidates. So if you're not a member of Indivisible Chester County yet, you can just go to our site, indivisiblechesco.org, very simple, indivisiblechesco.org. Find anyone with a button like this and we can help you get set up. And we would love your voice. We would love your participation. We would love you to join us. We do stuff like this. We do all sorts of stuff. Very cool on our website. So anyway, we are thrilled to put on this event because to the best of our knowledge, no one in the history of Chester County has ever gotten all of these candidates together to present to an audience without charging $1,000 a head. So as you know, this is free to the public. And we hope that for many of you, this is an opportunity that you didn't have elsewhere. Our endorsed candidates run the gamut from first-time candidates through currently serving elected officials. They have varied backgrounds and potentially different outlooks, but I can tell you that they all share one important thing. All of them are committed to being of service to you, their constituents. Too many people forget that there is a huge difference between politics and governance, between politicians and statesmen. These fine people, if elected or re-elected, are dedicated to providing constituent services and voting the conscience of their constituencies. Because in a representative democracy, that is what elected officials do. So we did have a few logistic items, which is because we have so many speakers, I have everybody on an 8-minute schedule. And Jackie, hold up the sign. We've got the 2-minute warning sign.
Oh no, you have the 2-minute warning.
Oh, wait. We have the 2-minute warning sign. Sorry. And so we'll let people know we have 2 minutes left because we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have their voices heard. And I'm going to introduce each candidate and let you know what they represent. And a lot of the candidates have people that are walking around there decked out in t-shirts and buttons. You can see them if you'd like to sign up. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Melissa Shusterman, who is General Assembly 157th District, and that includes in Chester County, part of Phoenixville, all of Schuylkill and Tredyffrin, and part of Upper Providence in Montgomery County. All yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you everyone for being here and stretching and learning about all the candidates, because the goal is that we go in as a wave and we're able to be a new caucus that can make change. Now, I have my normal pitch, but a lot of people at this point probably have read things online or on my website. So I just want to give a rallying cry for why these state house races are so important. Since November 2016, we've all been on a march to restore America's vision, values, and most importantly, compassion. And all of us have very distinct and different backgrounds. We don't agree on everything, but we can agree on that goal, that we need to move forward, we need to get new people in the government. So once again, my name's Melissa Shusterman. You're in my office. So before you leave, sign up to volunteer. Is that too much to ask? We're really a grassroots campaign, and it depends on the volunteers. But I would say every single person running would say the same things. So be sure to check everyone out. I'm running on common sense before politics, and what that means is it's common sense to not frack in our river basin. It's common sense to put money into our public schools. It's common sense for out-of-touch politicians to not be deciding medical decisions or controlling women's bodies. And it's common sense that we have a more transparent government. Currently, our Harrisburg's kind of been hijacked, and I call them being hijacked by a leadership that is more Tea Party, big business oriented than we've ever seen before in Pennsylvania. And all of us candidates are trying to get in there so we can represent the people and we can amplify everyone's voice in our districts and in Pennsylvania and move Pennsylvania forward. So it's a very simple thing. But we hear over and over again, the media is constantly talking about our president and his cronies. But there is a silent battle going on, and that battle's going on in Harrisburg. So when people go, oh, I'm so upset about this, I'm so upset about that, they have to realize the same thing is happening at the state level. All those things that you view, this is the America I'm used to, this is the way we treat each other, they're at risk also in Harrisburg. So we have to stop that. So here's my plea, and then I will answer any questions, because I don't want to use my 8 minutes just to speak at you. I would like to speak with you. My plea is get off Facebook. Do not tweet or Twitter or unless you're spreading the word of these wonderful candidates. Instead, we have to hit the streets, and that makes all of us a little bit uncomfortable. Uncomfortable in the feet, so get some comfortable shoes, and uncomfortable about knocking at our neighbors' doors. But I've knocked over 16,000 doors, and I know Katie Muth just hit 40,000, and it hasn't been uncomfortable when you approach people where they live and where they are most comfortable. The conversations are terrific, and we have more in common than you would think. So we need, that is our path to victory. I could raise all the money in the world, but our path to victory are those wonderful conversations where we realize we have more in common. So I'm going to ask everyone, can everyone stretch in the next 6 months and knock some doors? It doesn't have to be for me, it could be for any of these fabulous candidates. Come on, one hand up, just promise me. Be a politician, maybe don't tell the truth, right? Promise me, because this is how we're going to do it. 2018 is our opportunity to have real leaders, to have bold leaders go to Harrisburg, but it won't happen on our own. It'll happen with everyone working together. So let's hit the streets and bring it home in 2018. Thanks to all of you. Thank
you got 2 minutes.
Okay, just really quickly, does anyone have any questions? It seems like everyone has separate interests when it comes to a state house race. Yes?
I'm just really upset about the gun issue, and I didn't hear you.
Oh, yeah, you know what? It was written down, and I tried to, yeah. The first thing I want to do with this new caucus of our wonderful new candidates is have a ban on assault weapons. That, I understand it's not going to cure everything, but in my district we had 2 walkouts. It's time for us to show young people that we're going to do something, and then also keeping guns out of the hands of the mentally ill and the domestic abusers. We're currently reviewing a domestic bill that has to do with gun.
What about gun shows and the internet? We had an armory in Malvern.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know.
Well, Oaks was here as well.
Well, they
we have
had
one in
an actual, two young men stole quite a few guns and ran through the neighborhood. They shut down, but they're online now.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and we can't vote in legislators like my opponent has just become interested in common sense gun legislation because it's 4 months before the election. We have to vote people in who will go in, and the first day that will be something they're committed to, and I'm committed to that. We have a lot to do when it comes to guns here in Pennsylvania. So, any other questions real quick? I think I have 30 seconds left. Well, I thank you, and I thank you to all the candidates because together we're going to make change.
Our next speaker is Katie Muth. She's running for the state senate from the 44th district, and that encompasses 3 towns in Berks County, 8 towns in Montgomery County, and 20 towns in Chester County. So, Katie, come on up.
Thank you. It's a lovely stage. I like this. It's portable. My name is Katie Muth. I'm running for State Senate District 44. You are not in District 44. You're gerrymandered right out of District 44 right here. Melissa and I actually overlap in a part of Montgomery County for about 11,000-ish voters. My district is tied with Linda Fields to be the most gerrymandered Senate district in the state. So parts of 3 counties, I'm lucky to have super volunteers that have traveled down from Berks County up to, to Chester to Monco and back and forth to make sure that we can knock doors. A little bit about my background, and really it's why I'm running for office, is that I grew up in a working class family. I was raised by a single dad. A lot of the resources that were afforded to me and my family helped me and my brother have opportunities. And all of those resources are on the chopping block, whether it's in Harrisburg or Washington, D.C. We have a government right now that does not represent us at all. We have a pay-to-play system on both sides of the aisle. We have a pay-to-play system when it comes to health care, when it comes to guns, when it comes to for-profit prisons. We have a human greed problem, and we have people calling the shots based on their position of power because they were wealthy enough to run for office and fundraise. So I think every candidate that is here tonight are working class candidates, not self-funded millionaires, really hustling not just doors, but small dollar donations, working together, which is actually an uncommon thing, sadly, across campaigns in the Democratic Party. So we've really changed the way the game's being played, demanding that we have a seat at the table, because if we don't, you don't. And it's way long overdue for us to be able to be a part of that decision-making process and to fight for hardworking people and families. And Pam Hacker and I, she's not here yet, but yesterday we knocked doors for a little bit over an hour in the afternoon in a subsidized living community. And forever will I remember that day, and any moment when I want to not do this anymore because it's incredibly challenging and frustrating, I'll remember the people that we talked to yesterday and why we have to do this. And they don't care, they don't think government works for them, they're disinterested. And rightfully so. It doesn't work for them. And so it doesn't work for us. And so it's time that we rise up together. And I hate to be dramatic, but November 6th is the election of our lifetime. We are in a moral crisis, so don't waste any more time. We all have to, for the next 79 days, 78-ish, give or take a few hours, we have to hustle. And you have to do things you've never done before, because I can promise you, myself and every other candidate in this room have been doing that since we decided to step up and run. So we need the same thing of you, whatever that is. If it's only 2 hours a week, we need it. We will not beat out dark money without you. The momentum is stronger than dark money. Republicans aren't afraid of us right now because we have millions of dollars. It's because we have foot soldiers like you, or people on the phone, or people text banking, or writing postcards. Those are all so incredibly important for all these seats. Senate District 44, flipping, great, not enough. Every single candidate that you hear tonight has to flip this seat. We have to have a majority. We have to. There is no other alternative. Especially, look what's happening federally. We take on a new Supreme Court justice like the current nominee. We are screwed. The state is your last line of defense. Your state level government can prevent a lot of the federal chaos from impacting us as Pennsylvanians. So So I am begging. I am not ashamed to beg. I am begging you to step up to help. If you've never done canvassing before, you can come out with one of us. Help anyone you can. Any of these candidates are amazing. They've worked hard. I know all of them. They really deserve your help, and they need it. And so thank you for coming out on an evening where it's not particularly super sunny and friendly, but maybe that's why more of you are here. And we're going to need you to canvass in the rain, and we'll give you a poncho, and we're going to need you to canvass in the heat, and we'll give you sunscreen and bug spray and water. And we need all of this. So I hope that you'll sign up to help. And like Melissa said, let's get off social media, let's get on the streets, let's get on the doors, because I can tell you right now, we hit 40,000 doors this past weekend. We have favorable results with independents and Republicans, 3-1 with R's and 8-1 with I's. That's huge, because what we're dealing with are people issues, they're not partisan issues. And so if you can come out, share your story about whatever these issues are impacting you, you will help us get votes on November 6th. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me, and I look forward to getting to know all of you.
Everything Katie said is completely true, and one thing I want to tell you about canvassing, I spend about half my time on crutches, and I go canvassing on crutches, and people are especially nice to you when you're on crutches. And though you shouldn't generally go in if they look a little dicey. But the bottom line is, if you say, I can't canvass because I'm limited in this way, that way, and the other thing, you can do 5 houses on your block. Elections are won, person by person, house by house, block by block. Get out there. She didn't use her whole 8 minutes, so I was able to do that. Our next speaker is Dan Williams. Dan Williams is running for the General Assembly 74th District, which includes Callan, Coatesville, Downingtown, East Callan, East Fallowfield, Medina, Parksburg, Sadsbury, South Coatesville, and Valley Township. Come on up, Dan.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity just to share a little bit of what I'm doing tonight. We should appreciate Katie, we should appreciate Melissa, as well as all of those who are running. And again, thank you for the opportunity. As you've heard, my name is Dan Williams, and I'm running for District 74 and the State House seat that will be vacated by incumbent Harry Lewis. I'm running for a host of reasons, and I'll share maybe just a few. Personally, I am the son of a truck driver and a cashier, and I'm also the beneficiary of collective bargaining and the opportunity to live, I think, in a way that I'm grateful for, because my father and my mother had good jobs, good collective bargaining union jobs that enabled them to do for me what some others were not necessarily able to accomplish. I'm also running because I recognize that growing up in West Philadelphia, there are some things that I simply have not forgotten. I have not forgotten that in West Philadelphia you could earn a reputation not because you won a fight, but because you were at least willing to fight. Dr. Vernon Johns, who preceded King at Ebenezer Baptist Church, used to say that if you see a good fight, you should get in it. And every fight is not a good fight, but if you see a good fight, you should get in it. I believe these midterms create for us a good fight. And it's a good fight because we're working through the issues of speaking for a muted group of people who sometimes don't realize that the truth is everybody's entitled to a fair working wage. The $15 an hour is generous, and it should be more. A recognition that economic prosperity actually means economic equity, where everybody can grow together. We're fighting because, at least in my district, the 74, we're seeing a kind of disparity in which new buildings are about to be constructed, and there's a movement to do economic investment that is void of economic empowerment. And we want the people who live there to be able to thrive, not just survive. We recognize the same thing is true when it comes to reproductive rights. When we're talking about women's reproductive rights, we're not limiting it to this narrow confine of simply choice. We're talking about not defunding Planned Parenthood, but funding Planned Parenthood because of all of the incredible work it does in communities like the one in which I serve. And we're talking about the way in which it provides counseling for men as well as women, and incredible education around sexuality that no one will get in the streets. We also recognize that when it comes to state or school property taxes, the district I live in, people are being overwhelmed And in many cases, retirees are selling their properties because they cannot afford the school taxes to stay there. And so we have to find people in the State House who can advocate for a return to the proper investment in these communities to the tune of 50% the way it once was. And we need to keep working aggressively and fighting for all of these things. And let's be clear that for a number of us in this room tonight, if things do not change, we will still live reasonably well. That for many of us in this room, if no change takes place, most of us will eat well, live well, and continue to coexist. The concern that I have is for those who will not. And the fight that I'm concerned for are those who, if things do not change, we know their lives are impacted in ways that they'll never recover from. And so I've decided I wanted to run and speak for people who don't speak for themselves, people who are disillusioned with the process. And I made a decision a while ago that there were some fights worth getting into, and this is a good fight. I've talked to some members of the military who made it clear to me that when they go to war, they don't hate the person in front of them. They love the people behind them. And the reason they push the way they do is because they love the families they have left and want to see their lives better as a result of their effort. And so I'm asking you tonight to knock, to dial, to give, to sacrifice, because this is a good fight. Thank you for the opportunity.
Our next speaker is Carolyn Comitta, and her area she is currently representing General Assembly District 156, which includes Birmingham, East Goshen, Thornbury, Westchester, part of West Goshen, and Westtown. Ma'am?
Thank you, Indivisible Chester County. Thanks everybody for being here. And I want to thank every one of the candidates who is here tonight. I want to tell you, I love my job, and I will also tell you it can get very lonely in Harrisburg. I am the only Democrat in the Chester County House delegation. Now, 2 years ago, we didn't have any Democrats, and so this is a good thing. But I need many of my sisters and brothers to join me in Harrisburg, and I am here to tell you that the only reason that I am wearing my House of Representatives pin and able to represent the people of my district and Chester County in Pennsylvania is because every vote counts. When I won my seat in 2016, not many Democrats won seats that night, and I was losing that night. I ended up winning by 25 votes December 19th. And I want to tell you, you just heard about the bug spray from Katie, the bug spray and the suntan lotion and the water. It is every person who helps a candidate knock doors is maybe finding one of those 25 votes that I won by. So there were days, it's 112 degrees, it's, you knock on doors, nobody's home, you're like, I know where they are, they're at the pool, they're at the beach, and I'm here sweating, blood, sweat, and tears, and I talked with 3 people, right? I spent 3 or 4 hours, 3 people, and I would say to my volunteers, well, that's 3 people, and we only need 1 vote to win. Well, how true it was. You only need 1 vote to win, but after we won by 25 votes, that was less than 1 vote per precinct, less than 1 vote per polling place. There are 30 polling places in my district. It's similar in the districts. If you are the volunteer who helps find that 1 vote, that makes a real difference. So don't get discouraged if people aren't home. You win the races one vote at a time. I love my job. I'm in it to shape a healthy future for our children. Also to stand up for women's rights, for the rights of our children, as I said, for veterans, gun safety, environmental justice, and a healthy, clean environment for our kids. This is what I've been doing in my work as a public servant for over 12 years. I was mayor of Westchester before I was elected to this position, and I was a council member before that. And I know that all the change that matters comes from the people, comes from our townships, from our boroughs, from our neighborhoods. And all the change you want to see and all the good ideas that you have that you want to see move forward, if you think that that change is going to come from Washington or that change is going to come from Harrisburg, we can help in Harrisburg. But the ideas, the momentum, the hard work comes from the people, and it starts with electing people who share your values. And then we raise our voices together, we cast those votes in Harrisburg that with ideas that come from the people. Look what happened with March for Our Lives. I've been working on gun violence prevention for literally decades. Mayors Against Illegal Guns, Moms, that was before Moms Demand Action, every town, and so on and so forth. Ceasefire, I mean, literally for decades. It was the young people, right? The high school students who rose up, and they actually got laws passed in Florida. They actually got bills moved through hearings in Harrisburg, first time ever. I've been working on this, and many of you have been working on this for decades. The young people, the grassroots. So we need each other, and all of the campaigns need each of you. Every phone calls are good, door knocks are better, but if all you can do is the phone calls, do them. But if you can knock a door, there is nothing that means more to someone than actually seeing and talking with someone about a candidate that they really love and are helping. So I want to thank you all for all of your efforts. I will tell you, after Trump was elected, after I picked myself up off the floor, like everybody else, I said, any of us, I said, well, one thing I predict is that this president is going to be great for civic engagement. Right? And that is what is going to make our communities, our Commonwealth, and our country stronger. So I have great hope. And then I see all of you here today, and my heart is full. So thank you all so much.
Amazingly, we're running a little ahead of time. Normally, I grew up in a very political family, and nobody will ever stayed within the lines. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes to tell you something that the candidates won't tell you, which is, yeah, you got to get out there and knock doors, because they have universes and they have defined people that you want to go out and talk to. But there's another bunch of people that are never home, and they never answer their doors, and you can also engage them. Anybody who knows me will tell you that I'm speaking complete truth here. When I'm checking out at the pet store, I say, hey, by the way, are you a registered voter? And if they say yes, I say, do you know that there's an election coming up in November? And they'll go, no, I didn't know that. I heard that at the pet store from someone who said, oh, don't worry, someone will clue me in because I'm a junior majoring in political science at Penn State. Maybe worry about the future. But I ask at the gas station, when the waiter or waitress comes and says, can I get you anything else? I'll say yes. Are you registered to vote? And then you can engage people, and these are people that often don't answer their doors when you go to canvass them because they're working All those people who work service jobs, who work retail jobs, they work 12 hours a day. So never be shy about walking up to someone. And if you ever want to learn how to do that, you can follow me around on one of my days. Anyone will tell you that when it's time to try on clothes at the store and they're going to give you the number. Many times I've left all my clothes on my number going, don't worry, I got a voter registration form in my car. Always carry lit with you for your candidates. Always carry voter registration forms, absentee ballot applications. There are so many ways to engage people, and often when they least expect it. Like if they see somebody at the door, we all have Ring doorbells now, they're like, I don't know you, I'm not going to answer the door. But hey, you're in their store, you're in their restaurant, you're in their lane when you're sort of jogging along with your dog in the park. That's a potential voter. So anyway, our next speaker is Kristine Howard, who wants to represent the General Assembly 167th District, which is comprised of, I got cards on all this because it's very hard to memorize. Charlestown, East Whiteland, Easttown, Malvern, West Pikeland, West Whiteland, and Willistown. Kristine, come on up.
So, thank you for the introduction. Yes, PA 167th, the towns are Malvern, Berwyn, Exton Mall area, Chester Springs. So, I guess I want to look at things from two different perspectives, a really long-range perspective and then right down the next 2 months. So, when I was in college, back in the 1980s, I took a women's studies course called Women in the Law, and it was taught by a woman who argued the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court case, Planned Parenthood versus Casey. So that was our Governor Casey, and that was one of the earlier attempts of Pennsylvania to restrict abortion. So that case was won, and that law was struck down. When I, years later, decided to run, I realized, we're still talking about that issue. That was in the mid-'80s, the early to mid-'80s. That case was decided in the late '80s. Here we are, 30, 40 years later, Pennsylvania legislature almost every year is running some abortion restrictions. The more immediate issue is the door knocking. It's very important. I've been doing it, and it's actually a lot of fun right now because people are very engaged and they're very happy to see you. In years past, I would canvass and people, thank you, they take your lid and they'd close the door and not really want to engage. But now people want to talk, and even Republicans want to talk. And they are saying that they're with us, that something has to be done. So don't be afraid to go out canvassing. It's actually fun. People are appreciative that we're doing it now. So thank you.
I'm going to be able to give up my sign. Okay, our next candidate is Tim Kearney, who's running for the 26th State Senate District. And here in Chester County, he'll represent Easttown and Willistown, but he's got a whole bunch of Delaware County, and I didn't have enough room on my card to write them all down.
He's taller than you, even though you're standing on the stage.
It's sort of like, really?
That's okay.
Seriously? I guess you don't even need the stage.
I don't really need the stage.
But we'll just project.
I think I can do that. Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing a Delco kid like me here in Chester County. I'm the mayor of Swathmore. That's a little tiny town in the middle of Delaware County you may or may not have heard of. It tends to be the epicenter of Democratic politics these days in Delaware County. My longtime friend and neighbor, Mary Gay Scanlon, is running for the 5th District, but she's also running for the 7th, which includes big chunks of Chester County. And it's actually important that she win both, so Mary Gay Scanlon, make sure that's when you check off on your list. I'm an architect. I'm an adjunct professor of architecture at Drexel. I'm a small business owner. I'm a small town mayor. I'm not a typical political candidate. I became the mayor because there was a need for it in my town. Where Swathmore, which is not a place that handles change very well, was changing all of a sudden. And it was changing because we were allowing alcohol for the first time. The college was building an inn that was going to change the part of town. We had a strangely controversial roundabout that was being put in that people were very upset about. And people in the town asked me to leave the planning commission, which I was running, and run for mayor because people saw that my particular skill set as an architect is one where It's about reaching consensus. It's about understanding the big picture while sweating the details. It's about being able to work your way through various aspects. Leanne Kruger-Braddock, who is my state rep, who is won by a little bit more than 25 votes. She actually won by about 500 votes in hers. But she has a big target on her back. You may have read about all the issues she's doing with the Me Too movement and everything else in Harrisburg. She's the one who actually recruited me to run for this and convinced me that even though I wasn't a woman, I was going to do okay this year, and that I had what it would take in order to be a successful senator. Let's talk about the state Senate. For Katie touched on it before. Right now there's a super majority that they hold, which means that they can override a veto if they choose to do so. We need to flip 2 seats to guarantee that going away forever, but we need more than that. What we need is every one of our Southeast Pennsylvania state senators, we need them all to win, because what we need to do is change the tone of the conversations. Right now, Republicans don't need Democrats to do whatever they want to do in the state Senate. We need to change that, and the only way for us to change that is literally at the ballot box. We're not going to take over the Senate this time. The math doesn't really work. It's a hard push. There's a better chance in the House that we can get all these wonderful House candidates elected. There's a really literal good strong chance that we can take back the House. But the Senate, what we really want to do is literally change that conversation. We want to force the Republicans to take Democrats seriously and to listen to what they have to say on issues. And that's the only way we're going to be able to protect the people in Pennsylvania who need protecting. I mean, the major reason that I'm running is because I know the system is rigged. I know that the system benefits certain people over other people. And it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. I don't think the reason we don't have a tax right now, an extraction tax on the Marcellus Shale, is because the gas and oil companies have spent $65 million in the last 5 years lobbying the legislature in Harrisburg. There are 204 registered lobbyists in the gas and oil industry in Harrisburg. 204. That's a lot of people. It's like 4 for every senator kind of thing. And it's that income that we could get from the Marcellus Shale could do wonders for our education system. I mean, when I talk to everybody in Delaware County and Chester County, property taxes always come up as a huge issue because the state has relied on places like southeastern Pennsylvania to pick up the ball that they won't carry in terms of education funding. If you go to the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center and look at their graphs on their website, and they'll show you what real spending was versus what real costs were in terms of education. They have a great thing on wages, too, if you look at that. We were talking about $15 before, about how that's really not enough and everything else. That's absolutely true. So this is a nonpartisan think tank that's essentially pushing these ideas, and they're good ones. They actually make sense, and they show what it means. They show that there are places in Pennsylvania where their politicians protect them from losing any money that they get for education. They're running surpluses in their school districts. My school district, Wallingford Swathmore, is a wonderful school district. My kids had a great education there. 5 miles away in Upper Darby, not quite so much. William Penn, you heard about them? There was a little lawsuit with the state. Serious issues that we need to tackle. And we're only going to tackle them if we get more Democrats in the legislature, in both the House and the Senate, to try to do what we need to do. So I agree with almost everything I've heard today from my fellow candidates. We need everybody to get out and knock. I only have Willistown and Easttown in Chester County. It's a little bit of chunk. I mean, I think we can thank gerrymandering for that because they took Lansdowne and Nether Providence out of my district and to try to make the balance a little bit different. But, when it comes down to it, I don't care if you're in Glen Alden or Upper Darby or Easttown or Willistown, the issues of fairness are there. And they're issues that we can and we must do something about. So thank you for having me today. I'm, like I said, I'm glad you let a little Delco guy in here to talk. And sure.
What was the name of that think tank you mentioned?
The Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about the supermajority? Because I think a lot of our friends who maybe aren't here but are concerned at the national level and aren't focused on the state. And I've heard it, and I want to explain it properly, like what does it mean having all these
Sure.
Republicans in there, and what will change as a result of having more Democrats in
Well,
there?
simply what it means is they have a 2/3 majority, which
Right.
means that by just voting with Republicans, they can override a governor's veto. And we've seen throughout Wolf's, throughout Wolf's tenure, the vetoes and how important they are and what they really mean for us, and in terms of the things that we really care about. So if we flip 2 seats to 1 seat, some people say 2 seats definitely, that goes away. And from my point of view, as someone who's been involved in big, complicated things for my whole career as an architect, I understand the importance of the conversation in the room. And that's how you actually get things done. So if there's no reason for the Republicans, they don't need any Democrats, there's no reason for them to even engage. And you see that. We're in a position in our politics where we tend to stand in our opposite corners and scream at each other. And that's not a way to get things going. And that's not a way to make things happen. So flipping Democratic seats, and I think the more the better, because the closer you get the numbers to parity, the more they're going to need people to engage and to literally...
And there currently is a supermajority?
Yes, they have.
So are things that Wolf is vetoing currently being flipped right now?
They're not being vetoed right now because that's a real... They have the power to do it, and just the fact that they have the power to do that gives them a weapon. Okay. And it gives them, ammunition that they can use and threaten and hold over and all these other kinds of things. We haven't been in a position yet where they've done it, because the House can't override right now. But so it's more about the tone of the conversation and actually getting things.
And is that good for the Senate and the House?
The House has a majority, but not a supermajority.
Thank you.
But we need more Democrats in order to do what we want to do. So please get out and help, and thank you.
I want to reiterate something that Tim said about the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. Indivisible Chester County partnered with them earlier this year as part of their statewide listening tour. We held an event in Westchester. What they did was they went to at least one town in every county in the state to listen to what people thought should be the priorities for how their tax money is spent. And now they have now come out with a bunch of ideas that they would like to sort of get people to get behind, and they're better ideas than how we spend our tax dollars now. In addition, they do statewide and national charts that I've been fascinated by for a decade. So, Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center. So our next person, or did anybody have any more questions for Tim, or any questions on anything? Okay. So our next person is running for the 13th General Assembly District. This is the card. She will represent Atglen, East Nottingham, Elk, Franklin, Highland, London Grove, Londonderry, Oxford, Penn, Salisbury, remember Salisbury, South Coatesville, Upper Oxford, West Fallowfield, West Grove, West Nottingham, and in Lancaster County, Salisbury. And I looked this up. They're two completely different places, and they do not abut. And Christiana in Lancaster. And in case you're wondering why some people have so many more towns and townships that they would represent than others, it's predicated on population. But if you listen to the numbers of all the different districts that I keep listing, they're next to one another, but they have completely different numbers. Perhaps somebody's heard the word gerrymandering. Anybody ever hear that word? It's another, no, you never heard that word? We'll talk later, Phil. And so, but that's one of the other reasons that we need to really elect Democrats, so that we do away with such an unfair system. Sue Walker, come on down.
Hi, everyone.
Go Sue, boo, boo.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you to everyone at Indivisible for making tonight possible. It's great to be in a crowded room for a change. It's wonderful, and thank you for everyone else who's not part of Indivisible but just kind of dropped by to participate in this event tonight. My name is Sue Walker. I am the Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania House District 13.
Speak up. I'm sorry, we can't hear back here.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
Sorry.
There's room in here, come on in.
No, you're back here.
Okay, I'm going to try not to shout for the folks in
You're
front,
fine.
but try to reach the people in the back there. So Jessica very kindly kind of gave a spread of the district that I'm in. It's a pretty rural district. I've lived in Franklin Township, that's the eastern edge of our district, for the past 20 years. It's where my kids have grown up, where they've flourished, where they've attended school, and it's the place that I consider to be my home. So I am running for my home, essentially. I work for the Avon Grove School District. I've worked for them for the last 14 years. I currently work in the high school library. Previously to that, I worked in the Title I department as an instructor, and I've also been a volunteer coordinator for a literacy program for kindergartners. So that's a little bit about my background itself. Soon after I started running, I had someone ask me when I became a Democrat, which I thought was kind of an interesting question. It really wasn't one that I had thought about before. You know, you go and you register to vote. But truly, when do you become something? And with that in mind, I had to think back. When did I form this opinion of how the world should work? And I had to go back to 1981. In 1981, I was in 8th grade, and Ronald Reagan was president. So go way back with me for those of you that are old enough to do that. At that time, a man named John Block was the Secretary of Agriculture. And like most administrations, they were trying to find places where they could cut into the budget. Where can they pull a little bit of extra money from? Well, someone in the Department of Agriculture forwarded an idea up to John Block and said, well, let's see what we can trim from school lunch programs, specifically from free and reduced price lunch programs. Does anybody remember this with me?
Oh, yeah.
And they decided that ketchup
Yeah.
should be a vegetable.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a kid at the time. My school was too small to have a cafeteria. We were too prosperous to have free and reduced price lunching. But I knew that this was wrong. Categorically, it was wrong. You don't take nutritious food away from kids in need. That was it. So I thought to myself, if that's what it means to be a Republican, then I must be a Democrat. So to answer somebody's question, 1981. 1981 was the time for me. So, but this election is important. And every election is important, but I feel this one is critical. And it's more important to recognize each other by then. If we're a D or an R, an I or an O, we have to pull together and figure out how to make these things work. How do we make our democracy work for everyone? So essentially, we have some big decisions to make. We have to decide, in my opinion, what we want the future of Pennsylvania to be. So I'm going to ask you all a series of questions, and you can think about how you feel about these things. And I'll tell you how I feel about them. So we need to decide, are we a state that values public schools and higher education? Our students, our teachers, our support staff, they depend on consistent funding. So if you're answering yes to this question, I'm with you. Are we a state that understands that we must protect our environment and that we must do more than purchase land and conserve it? We must do more. We actually have to prevent things like oil being dumped on our earth. We need to protect things from being dumped into our waterways. We need to protect what kind of emissions are transmitted into our air. We need to make that decision. So if you answer yes to that question, then I'm with you on that one too. Are we a state that finally, after 9 years without an increase, raises our minimum wage? 9 years. Our legislature gets a pay increase every year. That's the cost of living allowance. I think we need to do the right thing for people who are struggling to earn a living and finally raise the minimum wage. assume that's a yes from everybody here. So I'm with you on that one too. Are we a state that embraces equality and considers our diversity to be a wonderful strength instead of a threat to our way of life?
Yes.
If you answer yes, I'm with you on that one too. Are we a state that can enact reasonable reforms for firearm ownership that allow responsible people to fulfill their Second Amendment rights, but keeps guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, those that might harm themselves or others, and keep guns out of our schools? Yeah! So we have so much at stake in this election, and these are some of the questions that I would like to be answering and helping to form legislation for in Harrisburg past November and into January. And I think there are a whole lot of people that feel the same way I do. We need to take stock and lay our flags, basically plant them and say, this is our democracy, this is our state, and we're taking a claim to it. And we're going to speak up and speak out and take our democracy back, because that's what it's come to. So together we can do this. We can move forward in a positive direction where all Pennsylvanians have value. And all of us are then connected to our government. I am so proud to be here tonight. Over the last 8 months, I have gotten to know the variety of candidates that are here and that were here earlier, and they're running around and everybody's super busy. And these are great people. It's a pleasure to really know them and to stand here with them and to basically sing the same song that they're singing. And if you give us a chance, we can make changes. We can move things forward for everybody. So I really appreciate everyone being here. And just in a final thought, I have a quote from Nelson Mandela that I'd like to share with you. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. So as we are choosing things, coming ahead, how are you going to handle this election? And Jessica was very eloquently speaking to how do we get other people involved? We're involved, but how do we get other people involved? Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. Talking about our government should not be a boogeyman in the room where we're afraid to have conversations with people. We need to talk with one another, especially the people that we don't agree with. It's way harder to talk to the people we don't agree with, but we need to do that because sometimes you do find some commonality there, and that's how we move things forward. So talk to folks. If you can, get out and canvass, make some phone calls, volunteer your time, even if it's staffing the headquarters of your local candidate for a little bit of time. Whatever it is that you can do. If you can lend some money to our campaigns, that's really appreciated.
We don't expect that.
So, and just get everyone to please go out and vote on November 6th. Make a plan, get an absentee ballot, do whatever you need to do, but make sure you get it done. Because if we get there, we're going to do everything we can to get it done for all of you. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
So in terms of engaging other people, one of the things that Indivisible Chester County has done is we've had basically kickback and enjoy at the World of Beer in Exton. And we did a postcard writing party there because we wanted to express our feelings. And we had a long table, we had postcards and we had stamps, we had all of that sort of stuff. And there was a table next to us of millennials, the young people. It's very hard to engage young people today. I don't know why, it might just be me, but because I am trying to get over my shyness, I went to the next table and I said, hey, we're writing postcards. Would you guys like to write postcards too? And they were like, well, what are you writing postcards about? And there were 8 of them. 7 of them wrote postcards and committed to voting in November. It's just a matter of talking to everyone. We should all get over our shyness. So our next person is, I believe, Pam Hacker. Is running for the 26th General Assembly District, and here are her towns. In Chesco, East Coventry, East Nantmeal, East Vincent, Elverson, Honeybrook Township, South Coventry, Wallace, Warwick, West Callan, West Nantmeal, West Salisbury, and part of Pottstown that's in Monco. And I just want to say that
it's big.
It's big. Do you need the list? You could have the card.
Okay.
And
I got it memorized.
We, Indivisible Chester County put up what do you call it, interactive candidate guide. We asked all the candidates to fill in information about themselves. We contacted everybody who was running for the primary. And you turned out to be union, and you turned out to be, was it an electrician or a plumber?
I'm an electrician.
You're an electrician, and I'd never known a woman electrician. It's like so, I mean, I could barely turn on a light, I'm so mechanically inept. And, but hey, take it away, because I've never, I carried my first lit basket in 1959, and I've worked elections ever since. And I've never known an electrician running for office. I'm just so thrilled to be on the same stage with you. Here, be on the same stage. There we go.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. Shannon, it's good to see you, and thank you to Indivisible Chester County for having me and giving me an opportunity to say hello and introduce myself. I am Pam Hacker. I live in East Vincent Township, right outside the Veterans Center, and my husband Steve is here. We've been married for 35 years. This October. We have 3 children, Clayton, Craig, and Rosalie, all adults, all gainfully employed, and all doing very well. How I came to this decision to run was because of my kids. After the election, my daughter called me, and she was a junior at our Rochester Institute of Technology, and she called and was really upset about what had just happened. And the thing that rocked her the most was she had friends that were international students that were on the ban list. And they didn't know whether to go home for Christmas, if they would be allowed back. It was just such a state of chaos for them at that time. And she's like, Mom, you have to fix it. And I was like, well, honey, I can fix a lot of things, but I don't know that I can fix this. And she's like, Mom, you have to try. And it was those words that really resonated with me as a mother, that my husband and I have always done everything geared for and towards our kids. And then my sons called. And I was talking with them, and they're like, Mom, why don't you run? And I'm like, yeah, right. I don't have a college degree. And they're like, Mom, they all have college degrees, and look at the mess we're in. And they're like, you're smart, Mom, and we think you can do it. And I thought, well, okay. So I thought about it, and I remember going to my first forum, and I wasn't a candidate yet, but I just was observing and getting the feel of things, and the woman said to me, do you want to speak? And I'm like, oh no, I'm not yet, not ready yet. But I watched and I learned, and I thought about really why I'm doing this. And I'm doing this, one, because of my children. And the state of chaos that we're in right now, I cannot leave the next generation, and hopefully one day if I'm lucky enough to have grandchildren, a foundation that is not firm. Everything I build is built on a firm foundation, a solid foundation, and that's how structures stay intact. And so I thought about what I had to offer. I thought, well, I'm a 34-year union electrician. That wasn't an easy path. We were numbers 9, 10, and 11. I had 3 girls in my apprenticeship class. And I thought, I was like a pioneer for that. And I wasn't welcomed. And I went through a lot of, harassment and things. And, they thought I should be home. And I liked what I did, though. I was proud of what I did. And I built off of that. And I've never had a grievance. I've never had a sexual harassment claim, although I probably could be very wealthy right now in today's light of what happens. But I didn't. But every step that I journeyed, every step that I took, every harassment that I, made it through to the other side, gave me the strength, gave me the backbone that I need to run for this office. And this is not going to be an easy climb. Tim Hennessy has been in for 25 years. He's had 4 opponents. One was a woman, Fern Kaufman, who ran against him twice and almost beat him. And the other 2, Mike Hayes, and I'm not even sure who the other guy were respectable. But really, 3 of the last 4 elections, he didn't have to do anything. Nobody ran against him. And I thought, this is for my kids. I see the attack that labor is under and unions. And why are they under attack? Because there's strength and there's power in numbers. And right now we are in such a divide and conquer atmosphere that they are going after them. I just came from an interview with the Pennsylvania State Education Association, PSEA, and I said to them, I believe knowledge is power. And right now, we are so far trying to remove knowledge from that platform. And I read an article where in Harrisburg, that because of the administration's deal with the contracts, they want the teachers to give money back. They only make $42,500, and they want them to give thousands of dollars back because of their error. And in my line of work, I do the work. I don't run the work, I do the work. And they're the people I'm looking to stand up and I'm looking to fight for, and the voice that really needs to be heard and be respected and brought value back to that. And that's why I decided to run, is for those that do the work, not those that run the work. And so as I go through this journey, it's a learning curve. I'm thankful for Melissa and Katie and Danielle. We're all trying to work together, and I think we're doing pretty well because we're all first-time candidates in this, and it's journeying through something that there isn't Candidate for Dummies book to read, and so we're feeling our way. But what I want to say is, all of you in this room are power, and we're numbers. And to have your support behind us is huge and drives us. And it gives us that energy, it gives us that focus, it gives us that determination to go to Harrisburg and come back and say, look, this is what they have on the books now that they want us to pass. What are your thoughts? What are your views? And that's what I want to do, because I don't have all the answers. And I've always worked as a team. If we had a problem, I had to get together with the carpenters, the sheet metal guys, the bricklayers, whoever. And we figured problems out. And I think that's the one thing I can't say I have all the answers, because I don't. Because I've always worked on a team mentality. Next time you drive down the Schuylkill Expressway and you see the cameras and the big board that says, 1.5 miles to 676, 18 minutes, think of me, because I did that. I worked on that project. My first 2 weeks there, it was like the crash truck and the Jersey barrier were about this wide, and there I was like this, and then to the point where I wore holes. But you know what? I adjusted, I figured it out, I learned. And I got my bearings about me, and thank God I had some time and everything, and trust me, I love traffic jams, and I have no problem with that other than a tractor trailer whizzing by at 70 miles an hour, and there goes my hard hat and the ladder and everything else. But that is the ability that I have, is to adjust and to look at situations, evaluate, and feel where my talents are best used and where your talents are best used, and how you can help me. I can help you, you can help me, you can help all of us, all the candidates here. And we're thankful for all of you coming out tonight and hearing us and knowing, seeing our faces. I mean, I'm sure you've heard my name, but you really haven't met me. But here I am, and I am you. And this is you standing up and saying to Harrisburg, you know what? We've been forgotten for too long, and now it's time you're going to hear us, and we're going to be represented at that table. And that's what I hope to bring, and I hope to win. And my opponent, all the interviews that I've gone for, all the questionnaires I've filled out, has not responded to one, because he's comfortable, he's safe. Well, no, he's not, because I'm coming. I'm coming. Comfort zone. This is really, it really is. But please come knock doors, send a donation, make a phone call, talk to your neighbors like the other candidates have all said, because really, let me leave you with one little quote. Let me think what the quote is. Never doubt that a group of concerned, committed citizens can change the world. For indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So thank you for joining with all of us, and I greatly appreciate the time, and it's a pleasure to meet everyone, and thank you. I look forward to representing you in Harrisburg in November.
About, like you didn't go to college. Let me tell you something. I have an incredible number of degrees, and I can guarantee you somebody had to graduate last in the class, and they're idiots. So you do something. I hire people to do electric work in my house because, like I said, I stand in awe of what you can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Danielle Friel Otten, and she is running for the General Assembly 155th, which includes East Brandywine, East Pikeland, part of Phoenixville, Spring City, Upper Urchland, I have a mental block, West Brandywine, and West Vincent. Come on up, Danielle.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Friel Otten. I'm running for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives in District 155, and Jessica just told you what that means. Everyone has been sitting here listening so well. I thought I would just start with asking the question of, what do you all want to know about? I always like to hear what people in the room want to hear about, because I feel like the worst possible thing that could happen is if you left this room and didn't hear the one thing that you were hoping to hear from a candidate. So since we have a little more time than we normally do at an event like this, I thought maybe I'd throw it out there. Like, does anybody have specific issues they want to kind of hear positions on, or have serious concerns about? You asked the right person. Okay. Mariner 2. Anyone else?
Food stamps.
Food stamps? Fracking. Anyone else? Nathan? Giving me that call. No. All right. Well, fracking, Mariner East are what led me to be standing here tonight. I am a mother, first and foremost, and I'm also a marketing professional. And 4 years ago, when I was pregnant with, well, not pregnant anymore, actually a new mom, to a little boy for the first time, my neighbors started to learn about the Mariner 2 East project that goes 40 feet from the backyard where my kids play today. And so we spent a lot of time. There was this little group called the Marchwood Neighborhood Group that we would chat online about who talked to this land agent and what did they say and what did you hear and who's got a good lawyer and how do we fight this and what are we going to do. And someone put it really well to me the other day and said, what if you knew that for 20 years the people who were elected to represent you were working every single day
to put all of the things in place that would advance the interest of an out-of-state company, for-profit company, who's sending your natural resources across the ocean to profit while setting up your family to lose their safety at night when they sleep and play in their backyards, the property value of your home, and the environment and natural resources of your community. And that when you looked out your back window, I was telling him about a moment a couple of months ago when I looked out the window and there was a fog in the kind of in the valley of my neighbor's backyard. And normally I would just think it was a beautiful morning and just something about nature. But for us now, where I live, a morning dew or a morning fog is petrifying, because that is the only sign that we have of a potential leak to a highly volatile natural gas liquids pipeline that's been put 40 feet from the home where my children put their head down at night. And our legislators have spent the last 20 years working to put everything in place so that that could happen with very little recourse for homeowners and for community members to make sure that our communities were protected, including stripping our townships of the ability to have zoning ordinances that create siting for how many feet away from a home or a school or a building where people gather, including giving PUC status to a company that doesn't actually serve the common good of Pennsylvania. And so that's what I've learned in the last 4 years about our government. And I've also learned that our state representative in the 155th has been a part of this, not just in her 3 terms, but she was a legislative aide for the person before her and the person before him. And if you take a good look at her campaign finance report, it tells you a whole lot about why she really doesn't care when we come into her office and talk to her. Her name is Becky Corbin. And she has been deaf to my community's voice. She has voted in favor of the things that have led to what's happening in our community here. And so a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, a group of neighbors sat around one of my neighbors' patio tables after dinner one night after we got all of our kids to bed. And we had kind of talked about what we had been through over the last 3 years and what are our next steps, because the bulldozers were pulling in, the trees were coming down, people were pissed and they were ready to fight, but we knew that a lot of what we could have done should have been done years prior. And so the question was, what do we do? Do we give up or do we take this as an opportunity? And we decided to take it as an opportunity. So 2 people sitting at that table that night decided to run for office, and they ran for township supervisor. And we all decided that we were going to open up our little neighborhood group on Facebook to the entire township, and we called it the Euclid Safety Coalition. And our goal was to educate and engage our neighbors about what was happening, how it happened, and what we need to do to make sure that nothing like this ever happens to another community in Pennsylvania again. And so we came together. I think some people in this room may know about some of the work that we've done in the community. We've not only created the Euclid Safety Coalition, but then from that came a West Whiteland Coalition, a Goshen United Coalition, an Upper Euclid Coalition, a Wells Township Coalition, and then we all came together and formed the Del Chesco United for Pipeline Safety, which brought all of the communities between Chester County and Delaware County who are affected by this project together to advocate at the state level. We were all advocating individually at the local level, but we came together to advocate as a larger community at the state level. We've done a lot of great work. Some of you may have heard about some of our recent efforts to fund a citizens-funded risk assessment of the project to be able to understand the risks that our communities are under, because it's never been done and never made publicly available. So even our first responders don't know what they're dealing with because they've never studied it, or at least if they have studied it, they won't release it. And we have lobbied at the state level. We've met with Governor Wolf. We've had press conferences at the state capitol, and we have been a part of holding this company accountable at every single step of this project. And while it is not done, it is 18 months behind schedule, and our communities are starting to have a greater voice than we've ever had in the 4 years that I've been a part of this project. So the other part of our effort was that we were going to get 2 new township supervisors elected, and we were going to take over that township board. And so last fall, a group called Food and Water Watch came into our community, and a lot of people like to call them paid protesters. They're not paid protesters. They are paid organizers who teach people like me, who have access to a lot of people that share my values, how to organize them and take action and make things happen. And so if you've ever met Sam and Sam, they're like my 2 buds. I love them. They're such great people. And they came in and they taught us how to organize, and they taught us how to do electoral work. And we knocked on doors and we talked to our neighbors, and for the first time in history, Euclid Township has new supervisors who happen to be Democrats, but more importantly are there to serve the people in our communities and the voice of the people instead of the voice of the corporate interests that are trying to take our neighborhoods away from us. State House because we're taking it to the next step. We're going to change our leadership at the state level. We're going to move that person out of the way who's been standing in the way of making the legislation happen so that we can make sure that these things are not happening all over Pennsylvania. Because I will tell you something, Mariner East is simply a test. There is no way to get that Marcellus Shale from western Pennsylvania to the port in Marcus Hook and over to Europe without going through Chester and Delaware County. And there is nowhere to pump that natural gas liquid in Chester and Delaware County without being within 25 to 30 feet of somebody's home. So we have easements and pipelines all over, and if you've seen the recent article in the news this week, that is their plan. They are going to continue to buy old pipelines like the one that they're working on now, and they're going to continue to repurpose and reuse them and put them through our backyards, across our front doorsteps, through our schoolyards, under our churches, through apartment complexes, to get that natural gas to Europe to make profits for Kelsey Warren. So I stepped up to say yes to run for the State House because I want to be here as a voice for my community. I'm a mom and I'm a neighbor, and I will address my job as a state legislature as a mom and a neighbor first and foremost. And always be looking out for the people that have to live, work, and raise their families here in Chester County over any other interest that hopes to do business in Pennsylvania. So.
So we've heard from all of the people who are going to be running within Chester County for the State Assembly and the State Senate who were here. I would like to introduce our Chester County congressional candidate, Chrissy Houlahan, who probably needs no introduction, but I feel compelled to say that I've met her numerous times, including once when she was still thinking about whether or not to run. And the thing I found most wonderful about her is we met over coffee, and I had a cup of coffee that had like the, you know, the stuff in it. And she had plain coffee, but she had like a pastry, and we're both looking down, and she's like, I shouldn't. I'm like, I really shouldn't. And she said, well, I won't tell if you won't. And immediately I thought she was wonderful. And then when I asked her all these questions about what she wanted to do, and what she was going to do, and how she would raise money, and how she would talk to people, and what were the issues that mattered to her, she really won my political heart, not just my food heart. Chrissy, come on up.
Long gone are the days when I get to eat. I haven't eaten yet, so I'm looking forward to
You want a cookie?
a hamburger. Yeah, no, I'm going for hamburger. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for joining all of us candidates and listening to our motivations and our stories, because I think many of those motivations and stories are similar to what brought you here tonight. My name is Chrissy Houlahan, and I'm running for Congress in what I call the new and improved 6th Congressional District. It's the only district in the state that actually retained its number, but it changed quite significantly over the course of the reapportionment or the fair district opportunity. So what is left of the 6th Congressional District is all of Chester County, with very few exceptions. 80% of the district is Chester County. The other 20% is Berks County. What's important for us to know about that is Westchester and Reading are grounding those two communities in terms of largest cities. Also important to know about that is we're still 50-50 Republican and Democrat in those newly drawn districts. Please don't listen to anybody who says that this is now, a slam dunk in the bag kind of opportunity, because it is not. Within this community, we certainly did vote for Hillary Clinton in the last election by a larger margin than in the old district, but we also voted for Senator Pat Toomey that same day as a group. So it's important when you're talking to people in our community that you're communicating that this is very much of a purple place, and we need to work very hard to make sure we flip this community in 77 days, almost exactly. By way of background for me, similar to the stories that you've heard from a lot of people, I never expected that I'd be standing in front of you on a box talking about my life and my motivations for running for any office, let alone for Congress. I thought that I was sort of doing my job as a civilian over the course of my 30 adult years, doing things that I thought mattered for us. I'm a third-generation military person. My dad and my grandfather were both career naval officers, and I joined the military, the Air Force for me specifically, just out of school. I had an ROTC scholarship in engineering. Had the chance to serve up at Hanscom. Strategic and Air Defense Initiative programs, anti-ballistic missile programs was what I worked on as an engineer. Did a graduate degree up there as well. Had my 2 babies and got to come down here to join our community. And I've lived in Chester County for almost 24 years now, raising my family. I came here with 1- and 3-year-old girls. They're now 23 and 26 years old. So I'm really very proud that I got the opportunity to stay in one place and raise my family in one place. As a military kid, I moved nearly every year, and it was really important for me to come to one place and stay. I got to come here to join some friends who had started a basketball apparel and footwear company. It actually was sort of a t-shirt company when I started there, and my job was their chief operating officer, and my job was to create kind of the culture that was there, to create the infrastructure to grow that company, but also to create the culture. And as I mentioned, I was, a young mom. First mom, in fact, at the company, first woman in senior management, obviously first person who didn't really care about basketball a whole lot. And so what I did care about was making sure that we created a good company that treated people well. Everyone had health care, including families. Everyone had 40 hours of community service. Everyone had weeks and weeks of extended vacation, including family medical leave and leave for birth of child, adoption of child for both men and women. We had dogs at work, we had kids at work, we had yoga at work, we had nursing rooms at work, we had basketball at work, we had your dry cleaning at work, we had your prescriptions dropped off at work, and your car washed in the parking lot at work. Because these things were really important to me as a young mom in growing that kind of a company, that you could bring your whole self to work when you came to work. That company grew to about $250 million in annual revenues, and it was headquartered right outside of the Paoli Hospital, convenient for people playing ball and injuring themselves. The company was sold about 12 years ago, and the gentleman who purchased it didn't care at all about that really special culture that we had built, and very, very rapidly tore that out of our community and out of our company. And I argue with people who haven't heard of And One Basketball since that is exactly why that we haven't heard of that company any longer. When you take the culture away, when you take away caring for community and environment and employees, you take away the essence of a company. And in fact, I believe that so strongly that a bunch of us started another organization immediately following that called the Benefit Corporation, or B-Lab. Benefit Corporation is a nonprofit concept that basically says that a large part of our economy is for profit, and that very, very large part of our economy, about 80% of it, should be allowed to legally consider something more than their profits just exclusively. They should be allowed to consider their community, the environment, their employees, when making critical business decisions like selling the company. It should be legal to do that. And so as a consequence with this movement, the B Corp movement, you now can, in 37 states, incorporate your company as a B Corp or as a benefit corporation, considering all of those things that make 80% of our economy go and doing it responsibly. That corporation or movement started in Berwyn, right next to Clay's Bakery. And now, as I mentioned, 37 different states. Important to all of us who are kind of purple people, that means a lot of those states are red states as well. This is a generally accepted concept across the aisle that this is a better way of doing business. Served as their chief operating officer for 4 years there, and then for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been focused in education. Joined Teach for America, taught chemistry in North Philadelphia, and my experience there was remarkable. If I wanted to be helpful in education, I felt like I first needed to be a teacher to be able to be helpful in that way. And what I learned is that our kids in 11th grade, at least at Gratz, were reading at the 4th grade level, 3rd or 4th grade level. And that meant that they certainly couldn't learn chemistry from me, and they certainly were not going to be able to matriculate and become, productive citizens in our economy, especially with the skills that we need right now. So I got, for the very last few years, the opportunity to grow a final company that's called Springboard Collaborative. And Springboard Collaborative is a nonprofit that's headquartered in Philly and now is nationwide. And they serve exactly this community, pre-K through 4th grade kids, to make sure that they can read by the time they hit 4th grade, so that they can be good students, so that they can be good employees. And that company now serves 7,000 kids across the country this summer as we're standing here. So my journey has been one just like yours. I care for the things that I think we all care for. National security and security in general. I care for making sure we build businesses that take care of one another and that we create responsible businesses. And I care for making sure that we're educating ourselves and the next generation so that we're ready for every opportunity that's provided for us. And I think our government was doing that largely too, up until that evening of November 6th in 2016. Where I know that all of us had a very difficult experience when we expected history to be made and it wasn't made in the way that it was that we expected it. And for me personally, that was a day of door knocking with my daughter. My eldest was at that point 24. We sat down to celebrate Hillary Clinton's victory, and as you know, at about 9:30 at night, that went sideways and that didn't happen. And that was the beginning of the sinking feeling in my stomach that we had largely missed something very, very extraordinary in our nation, and that I didn't understand what had just happened and what our community and our country had just said to each other. That next day, my daughter woke up and wouldn't leave our house. She's gay. And she was so worried about what we had just said to her community and to other communities like hers that she wouldn't go back to her adult life for more than a week. She stayed in her room or in my house instead of going home to her adulthood. And that same week, my dad came to visit me, and I mentioned to you that my dad is a career naval officer, but he also came here as a 5-year-old from Poland. He's a Holocaust survivor. And my dad came and visited me and wept in my living room about the opportunity that had been promised and provided him, that it would no longer be provided for other people, and that he didn't recognize our nation and was worried that we would end up having to build out our basements once again to hide people. And so when your dad and your daughter are telling you you're in danger, that's when you start realizing you need to do something about it. In the military, it's dual phenomenology. When 2 satellites tell you you're in trouble, 2 satellites tell you the same thing. It's ground truth. So that's when I decided to start running. And I've been running for nearly a year and a half now, maybe more. And everything that I was worried about, everything that we were worried about, I believe has started to come true. Whether it's freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. All of those fundamental freedoms that we all believe in, regardless of party, I believe are being violated and undone as we speak. And I think now is the time, in the last 77 days of this opportunity to excel, that we work hard to finish this and drive this home, to change this seat, because everything, Danielle was talking about everything going through southeastern Pennsylvania. Everything goes through southeastern Pennsylvania in terms of the national map. If we don't flip this seat and many others in southeastern Pennsylvania, we will not regain the House. And so I need your help, I need your support, I need you to door knock, I need you to phone bank, I need you to talk to Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all of the people about how important this race is, not just for our community, not just for southeastern Pennsylvania or Pennsylvania, but for the nation as at a whole. I really think we have an enormous opportunity. It is ours to mess up. We've seen this one before. Keep focused and keep your heads down, and let's make sure we finish it. Thank you.
Yes, it's Chrissy's stage, and yes, I'm going to return it. Our final speaker this evening is running for Lieutenant Governor, And the first time I heard John Fetterman speak was at News Nation in 2009, and I was mesmerized, and I've been an incredible fan.
I've never mesmerized anybody.
I've been a real fan ever since.
Oh.
And you probably don't need this.
Yeah, I've never in the past, but if you'd like me to, I can stay.
Sure, come on.
All right, yeah, all right. No, I meant for the, I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Fetterman.
Hey. Great to be in Chesco. It's about a 5-hour drive, from my home city and my home county of Allegheny. And I've been basically campaigning from Halloween to Halloween, and put 62,000 miles on my truck. And I do it because, like Chrissy was just saying, I am very, very alarmed and concerned at the direction our country is taken. President's campaign manager was just convicted this afternoon of 8 felonies. I mean, that alone is earth-shaking. But not with this administration. That's just another one until he sends out a tweet or starts a trade war or taunts a nuclear power on Twitter. Or there's another accusation that he sexually assaulted somebody, or there's a recording of him using the N-word allegedly. You name it. I mean, it's impossible to articulate how drastically things have changed. And we find ourselves in that situation because who remembers in this time of 2016 how Hillary's got this? Yeah. Huffington Post, 98% chance. Everyone's like, we got this. And, I was proud to be one of Secretary Clinton's main surrogates in Western Pennsylvania. Had the privilege of introducing her at several rallies, and I was uniquely positioned to do that because, as some of you may know, I actually endorsed Bernie Sanders during that race, during my Senate race. And after Bernie didn't prevail, I was as enthusiastic of a Hillary supporter as I could possibly imagine because she is a profoundly qualified candidate, And some people on the Bernie side or other sides were displeased with me. They said, they're both the same. They're the, lesser of two evils, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I go back now and ask them, do you still think so? And no one says, yeah. What's the difference? I can't tell. And we all know Hillary lost by 44,000 votes. It's a tiny, tiny margin. It slipped away. And Donald Trump's path to win Pennsylvania started in my part of the state, in a small town called Monessen, Pennsylvania. And Monessen is a very down-on-its-luck steel town, like the one that I've been privileged to represent as mayor for the last 4 terms. And he showed up there and he said, I alone can fix this. Look around you. What do you have to lose? And he reached out to a group of people that really hadn't been reached out to before. And you know what? Enough of them rolled the dice and took a chance on a washed-up, weird reality show host. And now he is the leader of the free world, and there hasn't been a day since that I'm not profoundly sad about that fact. There are some members in our party that say, if you voted for Donald Trump, we're done with you. We need a new coalition. I am not one of them. I believe every county, every vote. We are the party of second chances, right? We want to reform the criminal justice system. We want to get rid of death by incarceration. We can't say, you know what, you voted for somebody that, quite frankly, I couldn't disagree with more, but we want to keep making the case that we are the right party. Now, to be sure, not everyone's reachable. There are ones that don't want to be reached. They are, nationalism, xenophobia, homophobia, all that's always been a part of the hardcore Republican base. But to that point, Luzerne County in 2008 went for Barack Obama by 10 points over a decorated war hero like John McCain. In 2012, it went to Barack Obama again over Mitt Romney, the handsome, sane, conservative uncle at Thanksgiving that you're like, oh, what a nice guy, But Barack Obama still beat him by 5 points. But Luzerne went to Donald Trump by 20 points in 2016. Okay? That's not racism. That is a lot of other factors in play there. And we got to get back to the fact that we own the union vote. We own the equitable vote. We are the party of regular, everyday, working Pennsylvanians. And we got to get that back. And I find myself incredibly proud to be Governor Wolf's running mate. And we got a heck of a job in front of us. Because what do you guys know about Scott Wagner? You know? Honestly, who in this room cares about organized labor? Well, Scott Wagner openly says, I'm getting rid of unions, and we're going to go right to work the first week if I get elected. Gone. I have a suspicion that many of you care about women's reproductive choice and health care in this room. Show hands. Yeah. Scott Wagner has said, it goes, it's done. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. That's what's on the line. Last night, you probably saw that when someone asked him, well, if you were elected governor, what would you do if you were presented with a bill to revoke marriage equality in Pennsylvania? And he's like, well, I'd have to check it out and see. I'd have to think of this and I have to think of that. And can you imagine that? You know, absolutely. You know what Tom Corbett did to public education. And you've got Scott Wagner, who is the much more coarse and the much more angry version of Tom Corbett, who said, hell, we could get rid of 10% of the teachers and we wouldn't even miss them or notice them. Meanwhile, there's a crisis in shortages of teachers in Pennsylvania by and large. And this is a man that would continue to hurt our public education. Environmental, you name it. You know, and just tonight, it came out that the reason why he's not releasing his tax returns, and this is out of his mouth, this isn't my spin. He said, I don't want anyone to know what I earn. Are you kidding me? If my workers found out what I earned, then they try to organize. Who needs that? Like messaging, Scott, messaging, you know? You're in the Republican side, not ours, you know? But thank you, we'll take it. And this is the kind of man that's running, okay? And this is what keeps me up at night, and this is why I'm probably going to end up driving 80,000 miles during my campaign from start to finish, because it is every county, every vote. Because if Scott Wagner prevails, ladies and gentlemen, the Pennsylvania that we know and recognize today with all the things that we as Democrats cherish will be gone. And it won't come back, not easily. Because, you know, they're stacking the Supreme Court. Kavanaugh gets confirmed. And then everything's on the line now. So states are going to be the last refuge for progressive and liberal-leaning policies and choice and labor. So it is literally all on the line in 2018. And I have been taking the case to everyone that is open to hearing this message. When I speak to one single union member or a room or an entire labor council, I'm like, look, maybe you don't agree with me on every issue. That's fine. I probably don't agree with you on every issue. But you know what I agree on is your right to your economic security, your family's economic security, and your community's economic security through your union and your ability to organize. The rest of that stuff, you know what? This is what matters. This is what's important in this election. And we need every one of your brothers and sisters to vote for Tom Wolf, because he is that firewall. Okay? And that goes with women's choice and health care. Can you just imagine? Can you imagine if you have an avowed gubernatorial candidate that says, if I get in, it's done? Can you imagine what that would do to Pennsylvania under those terms? It's staggering. And that's why I'm going around, because it's every county, every vote. We need your vote. And if there's anybody that says, well, I don't, you know, I'm not, you know, it's not really excited, not really into it, I'm begging them. Just like I begged people not to vote third party in 2016. Just like I begged people to, like, we need everyone. We need all hands on deck. Because I don't want to wake up on November 7th and have the same reaction that Chrissy Houlahan's daughter did, where I'm like, I'm afraid to leave my house. Because as awful as Donald Trump has been and continues to be, Scott Wagner would have a much more profound an intimate impact on your daily life as governor with a Republican legislature than Donald Trump would. And I'm not willing to do that. I want to make sure every voter in Pennsylvania understands the choice that they have in November and the direction you want Pennsylvania to go for the next 20 to 30 years, because it may not come back. And I'm proud to be that running mate. I'm proud to step up and say it's every county, every vote. There isn't anyone. Well, I don't care. I will meet you wherever you are geographically or ideologically and make the case that the Democratic Party and Governor Wolf needs to be reelected for a second term. And it's my profound honor to be in this room with you tonight. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your service. Thank you. I know you're going to vote. That's easy. But it's the 5 or 10 people in your orbit that you're going to encourage to vote that will make the difference. It's that you're going to knock doors, like the gruntest of grunt work there is. But it's the most valuable work there is. You know, money can't buy that. Money can't buy that. And that is the secret sauce. And that is the energy. I hope there's a blue tsunami. Hell, I hope we pick up 60 seats. But I'm not counting on that. There's no room for complacency in this election when the stakes are this dramatically divergent. And I'd rather wake up and say, oh, we won 15 points. I was all worried for nothing. Than rather say, oh my God, we lost by 36,000 votes. And my daughter and my 2 sons have to grow up in a state that I probably won't recognize after a first term of Scott Wagner. So thank you for your support. Thank you for being Democrats. Thank you for making sure that we safeguard all of the things that we as Democrats cherish in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Now, come on, wasn't he mesmerizing? Come on. That concludes our program. We're so pleased that y'all came out for our first Indivisible Chester County meet and greet. There are a lot of candidates still here, so please go. Give them a hug, give them a check, and most importantly, give them a commitment that you're going to get out there and knock doors. Thank y'all. Have a nice evening.